So I first want to start off with answering a couple questions from last class. Thomas asked about what's the difference, why is it that by nuts we say that you shouldn't take off the shells, shouldn't open up nuts and crack nuts on Shabbos. However, by eggs or fruit, we say you can take off the shell of an egg or peel of a fruit. So the difference is as follows: that by a nut, when you crack a nut, there's going to be pieces that go all over the place, and it's going to be very difficult not to be careful to move the nuts, to move the shells of the nuts, which the shells of the nuts are forbidden to move due to a law of muksa, which is discussed in a different chapter. And also, it's very difficult not to do the prohibition of selecting to take the shells instead of taking the actual nuts. As opposed to when you peel an egg, you don't really, you're doing it by hand. You do it by hand, and you could take the eggshell off and put it right in the garbage, and you won't have any worry of any in the future having a hard time not to do the prohibition of muksa or selecting. The other question was about if you have a spoon that has holes in it. I forgot the name of the spoon. What? If you have a slotted spoon, could you use a slotted spoon on Shabbos? So the answer is, it depends on what your intent is. If your intent is so that the liquid shouldn't come into your spoon, then it's forbidden. If it's just that's the spoon that you have around and you're using it, and you're not intending that the liquid shouldn't come into your spoon, then it'll be permitted. So if you have another spoon, it would still be better to use another spoon, I would say, just to never be worried. But if you have a slotted spoon, it will be permitted to use if you're not intending that the liquid shouldn't come out. Now let's continue. Before we go, before we go on further, I want to just mention some practical points in this forbidden labor that we're speaking about, the forbidden labor of selecting. So a refrigerator. If a refrigerator has is full, then there would be the laws of Borough would apply to a refrigerator. That let's say your shelf in the refrigerator is very full. You would only be able to take something out of the refrigerator near the time that you need it, unless what you're taking out of the refrigerator is on the outside of the refrigerator, the outside of the shelf, and you wouldn't need to move anything around to take the item out that you want to take out. So if you have a bottle of milk in your fridge, if the bottle of milk could be taken without going over anything else, then you could take it out of the fridge, even not close to the use of the bottle of milk. But if the only way to get it is that you have to move other things aside or take things out of the fridge before you take out the bottle of milk, then you should only take it out. Then you have to take it out near the time of use. And this is only if the fridge is very full. If it's not full, then it's not considered mixed. Another important point to mention is that the laws of things considered mixed would not it wouldn't be, it doesn't apply the laws of selecting when you're taking an outer thing out. When you're taking what's on the outside, if you're just taking what's on the outside. So if you have, let's say a few books that are near each other. If you're taking the book that's on the outside, there's no law of, it's not considered that you're selecting, and you'd be able to take it even not near the use of that book. Or even if you didn't need to use the book at all. And that would be the same with, let's say, board games. If you have a few board games that are near each other, if you're taking what's on the outside, then it's permitted to take it or to put it back in the closet, even if you're not using it. If there's board games or books, Svarim, or any books that are on a pile, that are in a pile. So what's the best way? What you should do is, if you need one of the board game, you want to use one of the board games or one of the books that's in the pile, and it's not on top, you should try to slip it out of the pile, rather than taking off the pile. If you're able to. If you're not able to, then you could take all the books off the pile and take the one that you need. But it's better, if you're able to slip the book that you need out. And of course, it should be, you can only allow to slip the book out or take the book out if you're going to use it in a very near time. Another point is, if you have a mixture, there's a bunch of items that are mixed together, and you want to clean it up. A solution that you could do, since by cleaning up you're not using any of them, a solution what you could do is you could take a handful of the items and then toss it down to make them separate. And then once they're separate, you could take one by one. Okay, now let's move on to a new halacha. Still one more halacha about selecting. We're holding chapter 80, halacha 19. In the Maznayim Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, it's page 86, the bottom of the page. So here's the case I want to present to you guys. You have a bowl of soup, and a fly came into your bowl of soup. You're at a Shabbos meal, and someone served you soup, but you were in the middle of a conversation, and during the time that you had a conversation with someone, a fly fell into your bowl of soup. What do you do now? A fly is waste compared to the bowl of soup, which is considered food, and you're not allowed to take waste out of food on Shabbos. So what's the solution in such a case? Anyone have any suggestions what a person could do?
Yeah, you can't remove it by itself. You can't remove it.
So what should you do?
Yes, Rabbi Yossi, I would throw away the whole bowl of soup. I'm serious. That fly is contaminated with all kinds of germs that cause disease.
That's true.
It doesn't belong there. You shouldn't eat it. Just discard the bowl of soup. Take a fresh bowl and take fresh soup. Just let it go. That's from a medical point of view. I'm not halakha. I'm sorry.
Right.
I know the halakha says to remove the fly with some soup. I think just get rid of all of it.
Right. Okay, and it's a good point, Thomas, but we'll still learn the halacha. Practically, you're making a good point. Well, what one should do practically is a good point, that it could be worthwhile just to get a new bowl of soup. But let's see it could be something else, maybe not a fly. Let's say a piece of a napkin fell into your bowl or something
Yeah.
else. What if a cup fell in your bowl? Or a little shot glass fell into your bowl. So anyone have any suggestions? What's the way that you could take it out?
I think if it's just a fly, you can take it out because it's 1 in 60, I think.
So that's for being, that's regards to if it's to be kosher. But now regards to the laws of Shabbos, that's with the laws of kosher. But with the
Doesn't
laws
work,
of
the 1 in
Shabbos,
60.
what?
So,
1
The
in
laws of
60 doesn't
kosher
work. on laws
is
of
it,
Shabbos.
let's put the laws of kosher aside about that's a different topic.
Okay. Okay.
how about if
know
this
what
has
you
to
did.
do with
This is-
sorting,
this is-
right?
Alone,
Yeah.
rather than remove it together
So
with
with
some,
sort, go ahead.
that's the answer.
I don't think you're allowed to remove the fly because that would be considered threshing. Because on Shabbos, I think you're only allowed to kind of ignore things that don't belong there. Like with grapes, we were told not to take the grapes off. That before Shabbos, you had to take the grapes off the vine or, that stick thing and then wash them and have them ready. So I think, I don't know, you just have to be really careful and either not use it or do another
Rabbi.
bowl.
Okay, well let's see.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
you're forbidden to remove the fly alone. You have to remove it together instead of the drink.
Okay, you're bringing a good point. Well, let's see what the halacha says inside. Halacha 19. Let me just mute everyone. It's a little noisy. Halacha 19. If a fly or something else similar to that fell into a food or a drink, you're not able to take the fly or the other thing that fell into your food. You can't take it out by itself. Rather, you should take also some of the food or the drink and remove it with it. So in other words, it's saying that you can't just take the fly out of the soup by itself. You have to also take some liquid or some food out with it. Now the Alter Rebbe has a more strict opinion on the matter. And according to the Alter Rebbe, you're not able just to take out this with a spoon, but you have to pour it out you have to pour the soup out until the fly gets to the outer part of the bowl, and then the fly is just going to come out of the bowl. So you have a bowl of soup that a fly went into it or something else went into the bowl. You'll have a second bowl, and you pour the soup into the second bowl until the fly or the other thing goes into the second bowl, and then what remains in the first bowl, you could have. Okay, that's the end of the malacha of sorting. Now we're going to learn about a new malacha, the malacha which is called teichen. The translation of teichen means grinding. However, this forbidden labor is not only when you grind something, but it's also considered this forbidden labor when you cut things into small pieces or crush things into small pieces, and certain with we're gonna see with which type of things aren't allowed to be made into small pieces. So in short, what is the malacha of teichen, grinding? It's causing things, making something into a small piece, which when it comes to a small piece, it has a new use for it. So when does teichen apply? Teichen only, in general, teichen applies to things that come from the ground, like it was by the Mishkan when they built the tabernacle.
You should have the picture. The camera's on.
They would grind something that came from the ground,
What?
herbs that came from the ground.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
when you're talking about grinding, what about a pepper mill that grinds the whole pepper into powder pepper? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So that we're gonna learn is not, and that's gonna be forbidden to do on Shabbos. We're gonna learn.
Yeah.
So things that grow in general, this forbidden labor applies to things that grow from the ground. But that's only by. Sorry, let me just rephrase that. Things that grow from the ground, we apply this malacha of grinding, causing it to become into smaller, becoming smaller. And by other things, we consider it a forbidden labor if it's going to change significantly by becoming smaller. So for instance, if you're going to cut wood to now that the wood is fit to use for lumber, that's going to be forbidden because of grinding. Because now by this method of cutting it, you're causing it to be used for a new use. In halacha 20, we're going to speak about grinding spices. Grinding spices on Shabbos is only permissible if you do I'll call it crushing spices. Crushing spices on Shabbos is permissible if the process that you're going to crush the spices is done in two different ways than the usual way of crushing spices, which they are the utensil that you use to crush the spices. You should be used in a different manner. Instead of crushing it, crushing with a knife, you should use the handle of a knife, let's say. Or instead of crushing with a regular utensil that's used for crushing, you could crush it with the back of a cup, the bottom of a cup, to cause the spices to get crushed. You should crush it in an unusual manner. And the second way that it should be done differently is that it should be the container that the spices are in should be a different container that it's usually in. It shouldn't be in a mill or in a motor, a pestle. Rather, it should be, let's say, in a plate or a bowl. Those are the two differences that apply by spices. We're going to see that in halacha 21 that these two things that have to be, these two conditions that grinding has to be done differently by spices doesn't apply by food.
Rabbi,
Rabbi,
can I
Yeah.
ask you a question about this?
Yeah.
After you've crushed or done that to the spices and have put them in it, and it's in a different container, can it be used after Shabbos, or does it have to be thrown away?
So so when you're doing something on Shabbos, it should be done for Shabbos. So if the intent is that you're doing it for Shabbos and there is leftovers, then it's permissible. Even if you want to be safe and you say, I like having when I have food for Shabbos, I want to make sure that it's for sure enough. I better be safe than sorry. So since your intent is that it's for Shabbos, that it's you want to have a nice a table that has a lot of food out on it on Shabbos, so you're doing it for Shabbos, the leftovers are permitted. It's permissible to eat the leftovers, what remains after Shabbos. So it depends on your intent. If your intent is for Shabbos, it's permissible. If your intent is that I'm doing it because I want to have it ready after Shabbos, it would be forbidden.
Rabbi,
Thank you.
Rabbi,
Yeah, Moshe.
what about, instead of using kalim of any sort, what about a stone or a rock? Could you use that?
Good question. To crush it with, so it depends. Is that a regular way to crush it, or is it an unusual way to crush it?
I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm asking.
Uh-huh.
I'm really not sure. I would assume that it's a natural, it's an element of the ground, and it's something that's not, it's not kalim that have been made by man. It's something that's natural. It's from the ground. So that's why I was wondering whether
To
a
me, I
stone
think
or a rock.
it could be something that's regular. That could be, even though it's natural. I'm not sure about this, but it could be that even though it's natural, it's something that's a regular way to use to crush things. Even if not nowadays, but in previous eras.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go and learn halacha 20.
We did that one already.
Halacha 20. Im tzarach ladach pilpelin oy melach v'kiyetziben lasis l'seich hamaychol. If you need to crush peppers or salt to put into your food, to spice your food, mutter ladach bekato desachina ala shulchan v'kiyetziben. You're allowed to crush these. You're allowed to crush it with the handle of a knife, and as long as the pepper and the spice and the salt are on a table. And I said it's not only on a table, but as long as it's not in a utensil that's regularly used to crush, a container that's regularly used to crush spices. So it could be also on a plate or in a bowl. But not in a motor, not in a millstone, not in a mill. So the reason that you need to do it in an unusual way by spices is because spices are not eaten by themselves. They're not. You don't eat them alone. They're put into other foods, so it's not considered something that you're doing right before eating, because they still have to be added to the food. As opposed to a vegetable, it doesn't need these changes because it's something that you're doing for eating. It's considered something that you're doing, that it's much more near the time of eating. Sorry, not for eating, but it's much more near the time of eating. There are spice things that you would use as spices, but if you eat them alone, then you don't have to crush in an unusual way. For instance, an onion or garlic, since some people it is sometimes eaten alone, you don't have to crush it in an unusual way. Halacha 21. Asr lachtai v'salam mashar yirakis eladach v'samach v'suda v'gam וגם עוז לא יחתכם דק מאוד. It is forbidden to cut onions and other vegetables unless you're cutting it right before the meal. And even then, you shouldn't cut it into very small pieces. So let's talk about this halacha. Number one important thing to bear in mind is when you're cutting vegetables to eat, let's say you're cutting for a salad. If you're cutting vegetables on Shabbos, it should be done near the time of the meal, right before the meal. What does that mean? That means that you should prepare it right before the meal and not first prepare the salad for the meal and then later do something else. Let's say go to shul or take a nap. Rather, you should cut the vegetables right before the meal. Now, if the only way you could do it is by could it be a scenario that it could be permissible to do it not right before the meal? It could be if the only way that they would be able to do the preparations for the meal was by taking a break, then it could be it would be permissible. But in an ordinary situation, you should cut the vegetables right before the meal.
Could I ask why? I mean, why does it matter? What's the difference if you cut them and prep the vegetables ahead of time or if you wait until the meal? Is there a reason?
Yeah, so it's for it not to be considered because the malacha of this forbidden labor of tochen, grinding, is making things into small pieces. So when it's right before the meal, we say it's just for the preparation of eating and not for doing and not just for doing this work of grinding by itself or work of making it into smaller pieces by itself.
But what if that is done Friday afternoon in preparation of the meal for Friday evening?
So Friday afternoon, you're allowed to do any forbidden labor. It's not yet Shabbos.
Okay, so we could do it Friday afternoon and add it to the meal Friday. Thank you.
If it's already Shabbos, then that's the when it matters. So that's one point. It should be near the meal. And the second point is that you shouldn't cut it into very fine pieces. Rather, it should be cut not very fine. It should be cut a little bit bigger than fine pieces. So if you go to a restaurant, wait 1 second. I'll just finish the point and then I'll take your question. If you go to a restaurant, you'll find, let's say, you go to a falafel shop, they'll cut the cucumbers into very fine pieces. So you shouldn't cut cucumbers into very fine pieces. It can be cut rather a little larger. Or the same as with any vegetables that you cut. It should be cut a little bigger than fine. Some people have the custom that they just train themselves that during the week they also cut a little bigger so they don't, by mistake on Shabbos, cut it very fine. And let me take your question, Andrea.
Thank you. So let's say on Saturday I'm making a sandwich, right? And I want a slice of onion and I want a slice of tomato. Those are fairly big pieces. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. But if I wanted to grind coffee to make a fresh pot of coffee, I can't do that unless I have a different way to grind it than whatever I'm used to.
Right. Even when you grind it, unless you have a different way to grind it, then it would,
But if I had the coffee already ground, then that's no problem.
Yeah, since you're not you yourself aren't grinding it on Shabbos. already
Okay.
ground.
All right. Thank you.
What else would I want to mention over here? So with grinding, you have to be careful also with, let's say, mashing a banana. So mashing a banana, you should be careful not to mash it into a way that'll be small pieces. Anything you should be careful not to make it into small pieces. Also, if food is not edible and you're going to cut it into small pieces, there would also be a problem. So let's say raw meat. Since it'll be easier to chew on it when it's small pieces, since it's raw, it'll be forbidden to cut into small pieces. What else do I want to mention? Okay, let's move on to the next halacha. So that's about,
Rabbi,
yeah,
what about egg salad
okay, good point.
from whole eggs?
So egg salad, give me a second, let me see. So egg salad, are you cutting it? You're saying if you're grinding egg salad,
You're smishing it with a fork with mayonnaise or salt or whatever. So is it automatically going to be ground too fine because that's what eggs do? Or is there
It's very possible egg salad would be an issue. Saying egg salad, making egg salad, it's very possible. I'm not sure, but I think it's very possible it would be an issue because, like you're saying, you're making it into a new substance, and now it's into egg salad as opposed to just being a hard-boiled egg. Let's move on to halacha 22. Now we're going to speak about a different malacha, different forbidden labor, the forbidden labor of ma'abed, making leather.
I'm sorry, Rabbi Yossi.
Yeah,
I didn't quite get that about the egg salad, the whole egg. How will we do that if we do it on Shabbat?
what?
The bit about the egg salad. How is that to be done on Shabbat?
So egg salad, it's probably, so I'm not positive about egg salad, but what I think is that it should be you should be careful not to grind it into the regular way that you would grind egg salad. Rather, it should be done in a different way, and it should be not as fine as usual. If you're going to, you should first of all use, let's say, the back of a spoon or use a cup to grind the egg salad. And secondly, you should definitely
Rabbi,
not as big,
by
not as small.
us, they chop it up before Shabbos.
Right, then you don't have any issue.
And
Make the egg salad before Shabbos.
then mix it in.
What? What was that, Will?
No, it's Ben, but I
Ben.
said by us in shul when they make it, they chop up the eggs on Friday and keep it in a bowl and then mix it or use it on Saturday.
Right, so that's the best thing to do. I think it's a problem to grind it up, and so that's what should be done before Shabbos. And if you're doing it on Shabbos, you'd have to make it into bigger pieces. It can't be as fine, the egg salad, and it would have to be crushed with the back of a, I think with the back of a spoon, or with a cup. Halacha 22 is going to speak about the next three halachas. Halacha 22, 23, and 24 are going to discuss the forbidden labor of making leather, tanning.
Oh,
So in halacha 22, which mainly it's practical. Its practical ramification is with salting food. Are you allowed to salt food on Shabbos? What foods is there? What's the law of salting food on Shabbos? So first of all, as an introduction, there are certain foods that through salt, they soften or they lose their sharpness. Their sharpness gets weakened. So that would be forbidden because of the forbidden labor of tanning. That since the salt is part of the process of tanning, and over here, when the salt is causing a change to the food, it is similar to the work that was done in the Mishkan of making leather. So what food changes during salting? That's what we're going to see in this halacha. Davar she'hamelech paya b'o l'rak techai, oy l'hafei charifosai, osur l'molchai. Mishum de'avi k'mei be'abed. Something that salt affects in it to soften or to lose, to weaken its sharpness, it's forbidden to salt that thing, that entity, because mishum de'avi k'mei me'abed, because it'll be similar to working with leather. And therefore it's forbidden to salt cucumbers or radishes, onions, even what that you need for that meal. Even if you're going to eat it during that meal, it's still forbidden to salt them. So what could you do? Rather, you could dip in salt piece by piece, one piece at a time, and eat it. So if you have a piece of an onion, you're not able to put salt on the onion, but you could dip it in salt water and eat one piece, and then dip a second piece in salt water and eat a second piece. Or if you have a cucumber, you could take a piece of cucumber, dip that piece in salt water, eat it, take a second piece of a cucumber, dip it in salt water, and eat it. However, cooked eggs or cooked meat, that salt isn't beneficial for them, only to give them the salt only gives them a taste. It doesn't soften the meat, the cooked meat or cooked eggs, and it doesn't take away any sharpness. So then it's permissible to salt them and to eat it during the meal. But to salt something and only eat it much later by a different meal will be forbidden. So even when salting is permissible, it has to be done near the meal or during the meal, and not for a different meal. So all vegetables you're not allowed to salt them if the vegetables are raw. Rather, you could only dip them in salt water. Other foods, let me just finish this point, and I'll take your question. Other foods, whether they're raw or cooked, they're able to put salt in them. And vegetables, if they're cooked, you can put salt on them. So if you have a potato, you're able to put, and it was cooked, you have a cooked potato, you're able to put salt on it on Shabbos. But if you'd have just have a plate of cucumbers, you would not be able to put cucumbers, you would not be able to salt your cucumbers. Also, when making salt water, it has to be that there's 2/3. There can't be 2/3 salt. There has to be at least a third. There has to be at least more than a third of water. So it's relevant to Pesach that's coming up. We have salt water by the Seder. When you make the salt water by your Seder, if you make it, and you're gonna dip something in salt water on Pesach, it has to be at least it has to be more than a third of water. Fruits are able to be you're able to put salt on fruits, even avocado. It's not forbidden, it's just giving taste to the avocado, so therefore it's permissible,
Yes, sir.
as long as it's going to be near the time that you're eating it. Pickling is forbidden on Shabbos, so to put things in vinegar for the sake of start the process of a cucumber becoming a pickle would be forbidden on Shabbos. To put a pickle back in a pickle jar is permissible. It's not considered pickling since it's already a pickle. Making egg salad. You should be careful when making egg salad not to put salt in it, because when you put salt in it, you have onions in the eggs. If you have onions in the egg salad, onions are something that they change through salt. Takes away the bitterness of the sharpness of the onions by adding salt. There is a way that it's permissible to put salt in an egg salad on Shabbos, which will be discussed in Halacha 24. Yeah, I'll take questions now. Question? Okay, we'll continue.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was going to say that this whole process was reminding me of the dipping on Pesach, and we do dip vegetables, and as well as having dipped the hard-boiled egg. So, but it's all right to dip the vegetable on Pesach.
Yeah.
But in terms of making a salad, obviously that would have to be done before.
We're going to speak about a salad in Halacha 24.
Here's a question for you. What about tuna fish salad?
Tuna fish salad. So that's
You need to break down the pieces of tuna into smaller ones from the can.
So you're wondering, is there a problem of crushing the tuna?
Right, breaking it into smaller pieces.
So, good question. I think that's a problem. If you're going to break it into crushing it into smaller pieces, unless you do it that it's not so fine. Make it a little chunkier than usual.
Or make it Friday afternoon.
Or make it Friday afternoon, yeah.
Okay.
Halacha 23. Ein lemloyach harbe peilin v'kitnias muvashalim. You're not allowed to salt many peas or beans that are cooked. Ki amalicha mayeles ben l'reakichon. Because salting peas and beans helps them become soft. Even if you're going to eat them right away, it's forbidden. But chickpeas, it's permissible to put salt on them because they're already soft, and it's not causing them to become soft since they're already soft. Halacha 24. Now we're going to discuss how do you make a salad? How do you dress the salad on Shabbos? Could you put salt in a salad on Shabbos? What's the preferable method to make salad on Shabbos with salt? Chasa, kishuyim, umalacha, feinim, salad, v'chein shar mini tabulin, sharisin, mibitzalim, v'kadema. So if you have lettuce, cucumbers, squash, just you have a salad, or other things that are made out with other dips that have onions in them. Which onions that you're not allowed to put salt on it, as we said earlier. You're able to put salt in it when it's near the meal. Why is it permissible? Since when you're making a salad, you're putting oil or vinegar into the salad, it's going to weaken the power of the salt. But it's forbidden to salt a salad and leave it salted without putting anything else in, any oil or vinegar, for a good duration of time. According to the accepted custom is that it's preferable to put first the dressing into a salad and afterwards put in the salt, because then the salt will have even less power to the vegetables that are in the salad. So when making a salad, you should first put in the dressing and later put in, or the mayonnaise, whatever's in there, and later put in the salad and the salt. That's the best way to do it. However, it's still permissible if you put in the salt first and right after you put in the dressing or the oil, olive oil, the mayonnaise, etc. Yeah.
Now I know all of this is forbidden on Shabbos. What about Yom Tovim, like the day of Pesach? Does all of this apply when you're preparing Pesach meals on not Chol Hamoed, but the
The holiday days, the days that it's forbidden to do? Yeah. Good question.
Let me have my pencil down.
Took it back
So
because
the laws of the holidays, I'll tell you a principle in short.
down.
Okay.
If cooking food is doing forbidden labor, things that are forbidden to do on Shabbos are permissible by a holiday for cooking, if it's going to enhance the food. So let's say hot food is enhancing the food, so you're able to get food cooked on Yontif, since if you wouldn't cook the food on Yontif, the food wouldn't taste as good. It wouldn't taste as good if it's cold. It wouldn't taste as good cold as it would when it's hot. So too other preparations. So the question is over here, is it enhancing the food by putting in the salt by itself? So if you have a food that it's just good to have salt in it, I would think it would be permissible. But if the food is anyways also going to have dressing in it, you should do it in a way that the dressing should be to go in at the same time as the salt or before. So depending on if it's going to enhance the food, would it be permissible? Does that make sense? You followed?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Now, what was the other point I wanted to mention? There's you could put in salt. So salt has to be put in near the time of the meal. However, there's an exception. The exception is if the food is going to taste better. This applies to Shabbos as well. If the food is going to taste better by putting the salt in many hours before you eat, much time before you eat, then you can put in the salt earlier on before the meal. A lot of these laws of putting on earlier on the meal more apply to, let's say, eating on Shabbos day, Saturday day, than to Friday, because Friday, either you're doing it right before the meal, or it's Friday afternoon and Shabbos didn't yet start.
Rabbi Yossi,
Yeah.
I had a question on paragraph 22, when it's talking about it's forbidden to salt cucumbers, radishes, and onions. So my question is it only those three vegetables, or are there other vegetables that are considered similar to them?
So we include all vegetables. That's what the halachic authorities, the later halachic authorities accepted. It's been the accepted view that it applies to all vegetables, if they're raw. If they're cooked, then it's permissible to salt them. Not just these vegetables, but all vegetables. Okay, let's go on to halacha 25. Halacha 25 is going to talk about a different malacha, forbidden labor. There's going to be much more that we're going to talk. It's going to talk about the forbidden labor of baina, constructing. However, the main place that's going to speak about constructing is later in this chapter. It's just going to bring a small little element of baina connected to eating. The laws of what's the application of constructing by eating? If you followed along, all the forbidden labors that we're learning now, the laws of the forbidden labors that we're learning now, have a connection to eating. So it brings in this part of constructing that's connected to eating, because we're still talking about the laws, the forbidden labors that are connected, that are relevant to eating on Shabbos, or preparing for eating. So the malacha of baina, constructing, construction, it has two parts to it. There's the part there's two steps in doing this forbidden labor, and if you do either one of the steps, it's forbidden to do. And either one of the steps is forbidden to do on Shabbos. One step is making a shelter. Let's say putting up a wall, putting up a roof. That's one step of the forbidden labor. Another step is combining separate pieces to make a form, because that was also done on the Mishkan, that you would have different we're actually learning it in the Torah portion these past couple weeks about how the Mishkan was built, and you would have a bunch of pillars, and they would have to be, for all of them to be put together to be one piece, they would have to have bars to put all the beams together. You would need bars to make them be one wall. So this idea of creating one separate thing to having separate pieces become one form is also forbidden because of construction. So where's the forbidden, how does this connect to food? Let's see, halacha 25. Isser baina shafgam b'maychel. The prohibition of construction is connected also by eating, by food. Kagain hamigabin gavino. For example, making cheese. When you make cheese, you're causing two separate things to form into one piece, one shape. Or you're going, or if one sticks fruit together, let's say dried figs, you put a bunch of dried figs together, and they become one nice shape, one nice form. That's also forbidden. Herring, and therefore when you cut onions with eggs, or onions with or onions with creamed herring, you should be careful that you shouldn't place the onions in a way that it will create a shape to the eggs or the onions. Rather, they just have to be put on top of it. So you're not able to make any shape to a food on Shabbos. So if you're going to, you have let's say egg salad that was already made before Shabbos. You're not able to mix it together to cause it to become one form of, let's say, a half a circle, because that's similar to building in the way that in the laws of Shabbos, how they consider building being done by the Mishkan. So
Excuse me, Rabbi Yossi. The creamed herring, you're not allowed to put the onions on top of it, or just put it any old way?
You can't put onions on the cream herring that will stick it together in a way that will turn into a certain shape.
I see.
And this applies by egg salad, tuna salad, chopped liver. You can't cause the food from putting separate pieces, if the chopped liver is in separate pieces, and causing it to become one piece in a certain shape. If it becomes together without a shape, it wouldn't be forbidden.
I see.
So, Rabbi, we should basically, if we want to make a decorative food piece, to make it before Shabbos and cover it and put it in the refrigerator.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but yeah, it depends if the decorative food is becoming one or it's not. So to make a nice platter of fruit, you're not causing if you're not sticking the fruit together, you're just going to cut up pineapple and put it nicely on a platter. That's permissible. You're not sticking the different pieces together. But if it's going to be stuck together, it should be done before Shabbos. It's permissible to take ice cream out of a ice cream tub with a ice cream scooper, even though that when you put it out on a plate, it's going to have a shape to the ice cream, since your intent is just to take out ice cream and not that the ice cream should be a certain shape. So it's permissible. But if you're going to have a container that has different compartments and you're trying to fill it up in the compartments and then put it on a plate, that would be forbidden. Halacha 26. It's already 4 o'clock. I think we should stop here. Okay, we did a lot today. We went through the law, a few different malachas. Learned about grinding. What's that you should be careful not to cut things too small. We learned about we learned about the malacha of ma'abed, tanning, and we learned a little about the malacha of construction, building.
And
What was number 23?
That was part of the malacha of tanning.
No, the one about selection with the war game, the pile of books or games.
What about it? What are you wondering about it?
That's part, isn't that part of the selection?
Yeah,
Isn't
that's
that
part of
part of-
selecting.
And that was the beginning today.
Yeah.